Several of my maker friends and I have a monthly maker challenge. It's where we pick a project and all make it in our own way, and then we come together over breakfast and we share our project and our methodologies with each other. Well, this month we made a recipe box. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made mine. Let's get started. After ripping this cherry board to width, we're going to plane it down to about a 1/2 inch thick. Using the miter saw, I'm going to cut all my pieces to length. I've installed my stacked dado blade in my table saw, and now using my homemade box joint jig, I'm just going to make box joints on all the edges where the corners meet. Now we're going to glue the box together. I first apply a little glue, and then with a brush, I even it out. The painter's tape is to catch any glue squeeze out on the inside. It makes it easier to clean up that way. I fill in any minor voids in the box joint by adding some glue and sanding. The sawdust sticks in the glue and fills it in. Now we're going to make our bottom. I decided to use a piece of poplar for this since it won't be seen and I won't waste my expensive cherry. Now we're going to glue the lid on. This part is made of cherry. We're going to clamp it real well and let it dry overnight. Now that everything's had time to dry, we're sanding the lid flush with the sides of the box. We're going to do a leather inlay on this box, so I have to cut out a shallow groove to put the leather into. I've still got my dado saw blade set up in my table saw, so I've modified my box joint jig to allow me to run my box through the blade, creating a shallow cut all the way around it. Now we'll just widen that cut out. This is where our leather will go. With the bandsaw tilted to 82 degrees, I'm separating the lid from the box. Now I'll just clean up the edges with a piece of sandpaper. Next, we're attaching the lid back to the box with a pair of hinges. Let's turn our attention to the leather inlay now. I'm cutting a strip off of this 3 to 4 ounce hide. Now I'm going to trim it to the correct width to fit in the dado we just cut. We'll give it a little test fit. This is a leather grooving tool. You guide it along the edge of your piece and it cuts a shallow groove in the leather that your stitch line will follow. I'm going to stamp a basket weave pattern in this leather. So first I scratch a 45-degree line. Then I wet the leather. And using my basket weave stamp on the line we scratched, I start laying it out and marking it. And here's the start. Now lots more stamping. We always keep the leather wet as we stamp it. That way the stamp takes. This is the other end where it's going to meet at the lid line. I wanted to make sure the basket weave matched, so I'm starting on that end as well. I'll have the pattern meet somewhere on the bottom of the box, so if it doesn't match exactly there, you'll never know. Now we need to punch it for stitching. We're going to follow the grooves we cut earlier. The next step is to stain the leather. I've chosen this Bordeaux stain because it has a little red color to it, and I think it'll really complement the cherry. While the leather's drying, let's go back to the box. We're first going to seal it with some lacquer sanding sealer. After the sanding sealer is dry, we sand the sanding sealer with sandpaper down by the seashore, followed by 3 coats of lacquer. I'm reinstalling the hinges. I took them off previously so that I can antique them with a homemade mixture of vinegar, peroxide, and salt. Now let's stitch our leather. We're using our stitching pony that we built in an earlier video. I'm just doing a standard saddle stitch, and as you can see, I'm a machine. And now I'm flattening the stitches with this full-size hammer. It only looks tiny because my hands are so large and manly. I'm marking the leather for where I need to punch it to accept the screws that hold our latch on. There's our holes. Now we need to drill the box to accept the screws. We're going to temporarily install the latch. This will allow us to mark and punch the holes in the bottom piece of leather as well. You can see the slack in the leather. We'll cut that excess out here in a minute. We're going to use contact cement to attach the leather. We'll brush it on both sides and let it set till it's tacky. Not like tube top at a wedding tacky, more like pink flamingos in your yard tacky. Once it's dry, when you stick it together, it's an instant bond. You just make sure the edges are pressed in real good. Now I'm going to cut that excess out of the middle. I'm starting by gluing the bottom half onto the box and lining it up. The latch we're using was made for a book, so this full loop won't work for us. But after I cut the bottom of the loop off, it'll work perfect. Originally I didn't stitch all the way because I knew I had to cut it. So after finishing up the stitching and gluing the short side down, now I'm working on the long side of the tail, gluing it down along the back as I go. Now I'm cutting that excess length out. And I've got to finish stitching on the long side too. Before I glue the back piece down, I need to make a relief cut where the box hinges. Now I just work my way down, gluing it as I go as well. a little more work on that joint where it meets. And now I'm coloring the end of the leather with a black marker so that where I put the two pieces together, if there's a little gap, it'll look dark and you won't see that light colored wood underneath. And the last thing I have to do is take a little bit of that Bordeaux stain on a Q-tip and touch up the ends of the leather where I cut it. Well, here we have the finished piece. I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I've been wanting to mix leather and wood in a project together for a while now, and this was the perfect opportunity. I think that red Bordeaux stain really sets off the cherry. And I like the texture differences between the leather and the wood. The box joints turned out nice. And that latch is really cool, I think. I have a feeling that in the future you'll see lots more projects inspired by the monthly Maker Challenge. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and hope you stay tuned for the next video. And as always, thanks for watching.